So the topic of the night is ops, obviously. We're going to be going over different going over different operations, an MCI scenario, and some different things that are required. So, we'll just jump into it. I'm going to skip to the first slide because that is for instructions for people that are downloading. The first topic we're going to cover is ambulance safety, right? So, I read a study that was by the Homeland Security Science and Tech Department, and they found that a lot of our fatalities are actually while we're driving. 48% of the drivers didn't maintain good records. They were at incidents that were at intersections and driving over the speed limit. So that's almost half of the incidents right there. That you didn't have a good driving record, you were going too fast, or you're at an intersection. So they recommend to use defensive driving techniques where you're focused on, hey, how's the ambulance drive, getting used to driving the bigger vehicle, knowing where your blind spots are, managing fatigue, safe following distance, safe speed's a big one. Also being aware of what's going on in the back behind you, like what's going on in your patient compartment, inclement weather. They recommend using spotters to help avoid backing incidents because that wasn't one of massive fatalities, yet it still happens. You've got somebody watching you back up and you still hit something. EVOC is one of the continuing education programs that they do offer, and that's one of the recommendations that they also have for ambulance safety is to do continuous training on it and to bring up all the new points and all the new research that we do find. A truck checkoff. Ambulance safety isn't just driving down the road. It's also what's going on with your patient in the back. Do you have all the equipment that you need? Is your equipment in date? Do you have this? Where is it? How can I get to it quickly? Do I have a spare if I need to? So it's all of those things combined. Believe it or not, they actually recommend the risk assessments too. It's not just a CAMES thing. They found that going through the assessments before each call, not just flight, but also ground, and going over the risk of taking each call is a very effective way. For example, we've got a lot of snow coming up this weekend. So if you get a call going out to New River Valley and it's a discharge to some house, you should probably do a risk assessment and say, well, can I get to this house? Are they in the suburbs? Or are they up in the sticks somewhere? And am I going to get stuck? Am I going to be able to carry them up icy steps? Or is there a ramp and it's a nursing home? So they want us to kind of be aware of these kinds of things. And this is stuff that is on the test and the practice test as well. Like I said, CE that is updated frequently is one of their other recommendations that they have. We get that through EVOC, but they have other training mechanisms as well that they do put out. They want us to also make sure that we're aware of the crash safety features that we have in the ambulances, like the airbags. Believe it or not, when you read the ambulance specs, which is really, really boring, they've got reasons for why those windows are there. They've got reasons for how big the stretcher space is, and all of that comes into play as like a crash safety feature, so that you're able to get out of the vehicle so that there's two methods of exit through the back. And all those things come into place. They want you to be aware of that. They want you to be aware that the seat belts on the harness, on the stretcher, are a safety mechanism for our patients, and that's what makes them safe. So if you unbuckle your patient to do a 12 lead, you should buckle it back up when you're done, because if you're in the back and you're in an accident and the only thing secured is their legs, it doesn't do as much good. Alright, so we're going to go to the next slide. For at-risk populations. That's another topic that was covered by CE, and it's another thing to keep in mind when we're going through the critical care section. It includes the elderly, which are the baby boomers. We are seeing a spike of 16% per year increases because they're all getting old and they're all reaching that age of retirement. They're all reaching that age of, this is where I'm starting to have problems and their bodies are deteriorating. They're more prone to falls, their medical conditions progress, their illnesses because their bodies don't work as well, and we'll go over them in depth. They have their own chapters. Children's another at-risk population for trauma. It's the #1 leading cause of death in children. Ingestions, illnesses. Pregnancy is another one, and these are just a few examples of some of these at-risk populations. You also have at-risk populations, you could say texting while driving, the teenagers. They're at higher risk to sustain MVCs, and it's something to keep in mind when we're going through the ambulance safety section, is not just what we're doing, but also what other drivers on the road are doing. Is grandma paying attention when she's driving? Is she wearing her glasses? Did she get her contacts filled? Can she see where she's going? Can she hear that you're honking the horn and have the sirens? Did you scare the new teenage driver when you come up behind them with their lights on? They hit the brakes. It's just some different things to keep in mind, and that's the point of this, is to kind of expand what you're thinking. It's more to think about what can I do to prevent an accident and being aware of my surroundings. A 2010 study showed that 58% of all the EMS calls were performed by ages 45 and up, and 38% were over 65. So all these people are calling 911. They're the people that we respond to the most. Why are they calling? All these different reasons. And they also put us at a risk as well. Alright, next, body mechanics. It's a big section in this as well. We're going to get up and move here in a few minutes because, like I said, this is going to be an interactive class. We're going to be getting up and moving around. We're going to do scenarios and we're going to do some hands-on stuff. The biggest recommendations that I had found from reading these studies were they want you to place the object or the patient in front of you at a hip level, to reach forward no more than 12 to 15 inches if possible, to pull straight back, not to twist. So lifting patients from wheelchairs and putting them in beds is a really big risk, and it's something we need to be aware of. You also need to keep your back straight, put your feet slightly shoulder width apart, and you bend at your knees and lift that way instead of bending down. It helps keep your spine in a proper alignment, and it maintains that natural curve, and it helps prevent injuries. Because when you bend down like this, you're lifting with all those lower back muscles, and you should be lifting with your hips and your thighs and your legs instead. And they want you to pull with your arms, not with your back. You shouldn't be leaning over and leaning back with your arms in a stationary position. All of these were given to me, believe it or not, by a chiropractor, by a study that I read, like I said, from the Homeland Security Department, and also from OSHA. These are just the basics that we recommend. It's a lot of information out there, so that way we can try to prevent these injuries, and that's the best thing we can do, is follow these simple, basic guidelines to do so. They want you to also keep the object as close to your body as you can. It's pretty obvious that you don't want to be standing back a foot from the bed when you're trying to pull. You want to put yourself up against the bed and try to be close to it and maintain a good center of gravity. You shouldn't be trying to balance up on a beam or some sort trying to do it. Those little lifts that come above the trapeze bar, don't stand on those. From personal experience, don't stand on those. You should be trying to make sure that you've got good stable footing and that your feet are, like I said, planted firmly on the ground. It's also a dangerous lift, and we found that the studies show that there's been a lot of injuries from people that try to lift straight from the floor all the way up to loading height. They recommend going halfway and then all the way, instead of doing this one drastic big squat and lift, to go up half and then continue all the way to help minimize lifting. We've already gone over avoiding twists and turns, and we went over the stance. You want to keep your elbows in, keep the load close to your body. Vertical lifts should be mid-thigh to shoulder height. You shouldn't be trying to put the weight down here, bending over. You shouldn't be trying to lift above your head. It just adds to the risk yet again. I think that goes over that. Also, another thing to keep in mind when lifting is if you need help, call for it. We always have additional resources available in EMS. We have additional units here at Carilion. We have extra help. If you don't feel like you can handle it, you should call for help, because even with all these proper lifting techniques, there are formulas out there that say, hey, someone of my body weight shouldn't be trying to lift 300 pounds, and there's a reason for it. We should be trying to get assistance to help prevent these injuries, because of the number one rule that we have is scene safety, making sure that we are ourselves safe. Next slide. We have we're backwards. Okay. The general well-being of the EMT. We need to be aware of stress and burnout, some of the signs and symptoms of it. Fatigue, irritable, cynical, and not just the grumpy, jaded cynical, but the traditional, like, depressed looking. Changes in sleep patterns, drugs, smoking, these excessive behaviors that show that something's not quite right. It has to do with the imbalances in the brain. It has to do with your body not coping well to what we've got, and it's just the buildup of stress over time. Something to keep in mind as well is when you're taking a flight patient, they have different stressors in flight. You've got decreased oxygen levels the higher up you go. You've got decreased humidity. Vibration is a cause of stress. Vibration is a cause of stress. That's on 3 different test questions that I've taken so far. Vibration is a cause of stress. It stresses out your body. The temperature changes, the noise, and the fuel vapors as well, because there's something that your body has to adjust to. And when your body's trying to adjust to that, it's wearing itself out. So it's something else to keep in mind. On ground EMS, something else to keep in mind, if you've got an illness, pre-existing condition, the biggest one we have a problem with is diabetes. If you're not eating right and your blood sugar is getting low, you need to be aware of that. You need to make sure that you're managing your own pre-existing conditions. Alcohol adds additional stress into your body. Fatigue, tobacco, all those things add onto the body. Resource management, in its simplest term, is using all available resources, information, equipment, and people to achieve a safe mission. That can be in flight, that can be in ground, that can be in an MCI, it can be in any of the above. So it's important to use the strengths and weaknesses of your providers. If you have all BLS providers and they're kicking it out at CPR, have your ALS provider work on something else. Have them work on your medications or your ALS skills. You only have ALS providers. Have them all working together as a cohesive unit instead of one of them fighting the other for too many chiefs and not enough Indians kind of thing. It's using your people wisely. And that's the basis of it. The thing about it is it uses cognitive skills. This is a quote from the textbook. It takes cognitive skills to take into account the mental processes needed to maintain situational awareness, make decisions, and solve problems. It also uses interpersonal skills to focus on the individual and the group behavior and communication of the team. So that way like I said, we can just all work together to get these goals accomplished. It doesn't do us any good to have it where one person's running the show and nobody else knows what's going on. Next is scene management. There's 10 steps to scene management. It doesn't matter if this is a BLS discharge, if this is an extrication from the middle of the woods. These are the 10 basic principles. We look for potential hazards. In the hospitals, we go in and we move out furniture from the room because it's a true hazard. It's in the way. It makes it so we can't get our patient out as well. And we secure the scene, which is typically already done by PD or fire department, but it's something to keep in mind that you don't go into an unsecured scene. You wear PPE, gloves, gown, mask if you need it. Gain patient access. Like I said, in the hospital, you walk through a door and you're there. At some person's house, you knock on the door, find out who's there, find out where your patient's at, and as you're getting back to that patient, you evaluate the scene and how you're going to get them out of there. Provide any life-saving care on the scene. Obviously, we treat life threats as soon as we find them. It's not something that you hang out and wait for. But once that patient is stabilized enough, we disentangle them and get them out of the situation. Be that onto our stretcher so we can take them to the nursing home, or putting them on the stretcher and getting them out of the house so that way we can take them to the hospital. We'll remove the patient and then we'll prep them for transport. That means backboard, C-spine, spider straps. If you want to do an IV on scene, you need to put them on O2. And then as you're going down the road is when you provide the non-life-saving care. Like if you didn't have time on scene, you want to start that IV and draw some labs maybe. Other things like that aren't critical and life-threatening at that moment. Those are things that you'll take care of in scene management. If you are in rural EMS, they have an acronym they like called TOMAS: Terrain, Obstacles, Method, Alternatives, and Safety. So it's considering where you're at and what's going on. It's considering how you're going to use your obstacles and what method you're going to get people out of there. Alternatives for if one method fails, and then the safety of the crew and others. The provider safety always comes first, no matter what. It's just the first thing we're taught, and there's a reason for it. I can't help you if I hurt myself trying to do the process. Keep in mind proper placements of units and PD if you need them. Be aware of hazmats, and there's a bunch of different agencies and phone numbers we can call. We have that little orange book in the truck for a reason. We can call the facilities that are in there and get help because we're not equipped on an ambulance to handle a radioactive tractor trailer dump, or we're not equipped to handle whatever they're spilling onto the interstate. So that's one of those resources that we have there to reach out and get help for those. Next. We're going to do some NCI and triage in this chapter. It would be in the trauma chapter as well, but trauma is a very high-packed chapter, and I feel like this makes precedence here as well, so it'll help break that up a little bit. This is an adult triage. It's an adult triage. It's different than a child. This is for anyone that looks like an adult. If you don't know if they're a pediatric or an adult, look at them. Do they have signs of puberty? Do they have little hair growing up under their armpit? Do they have development of breasts? Look for those kinds of signs. We give green tags to the walking wounded. Are they able to walk? The next step, are they breathing? If you reposition their airway and they're not breathing, they get a black tag. If you reposition it and they start, they get a red tag. If they're already breathing, is the rate greater than 30? You get a red tag. If it's less than 30, do they have a radial pulse? If not, they get a red tag, or their cap refills slow. If they do have a radial pulse, continue down, and then check if they can obey commands or they can't to assess their mental status. Over here on the side are just the different categories and the sum it up and everything that you should keep in mind with the triage categories. It's something that you should be able to look at a person and triage them in under 30 seconds. Because if you have 20 patients, you don't have time to spend 2 minutes on each individual person trying to figure it out. You need to get as many of them triaged as you can and perform the basic interventions. It's very sad, but we can't save them all in that situation, so we need to spend our resources where you can, and that's the point of triaging. It's not to spend 10 providers on one person doing CPR and not even saving that one when you could work and put those 10 providers on 20 different people and save 15 of them. It's sad, but statistically speaking, we save more if we try. Next up is Pediatric Jumpstart. This is the new and improved way that they do pediatrics. This is only if they walk. If they don't walk, then they are an immediate, they get a yellow tag or they need to be assessed in another way. Keep that in mind, because just because they can't walk, if the baby's crying and mom's carrying it and everything checks out, that baby can still get a green tag. So this comes in handy for walking children. Can they walk? Are they walking around crying, screaming? Green tag. Are they breathing? No. We open the airway. We go down to this. Are they breathing? No. Do they have pulses? Yes. This is where it gets different. You give them 5 breaths. The leading cause of cardiac arrest in children is due to respiratory natures. If you give them 5 breaths and they start breathing, they get a red tag. If they don't, black tag. All the other ones are listed over here. If they have decent vitals, then you continue down this side. Do they have peripheral pulses? Are they alert? Are they verbal stimuli? Are they appropriate to pain? Yellow tag. Do they have a peripheral pulse? No. Red tag. Is their mental status inappropriate? Red tag. Those are just some differences. This is the key difference between pediatric and adult, is if they're not spontaneous breathing, we give them 5 breaths and see if it fixes it. That wraps up the lecture portion of the class. Now we're going to go into a discussion portion. Like I said, this is going to be an interactive thing. We're not going to sit in here the whole time anymore. So, give me a second just to change my screens.
Is anybody actually watching?
And Scott, make sure you sign the CE roster where we're at. Okay. There is no beer, and I thought about getting pizza, but they didn't discount it, so I made cupcakes.
This is not a true study group without
You
beer
can't
and
have
pizza.
cupcakes and pizza.
Yes, you can.
That's too many carbs.
I don't care. So is the beer. I don't care about that either.
Well, study group at Fork in the Alley.
That's right. So we may or may not have a table with this thing on it. Say something.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to get this up so that way I can put it on the
Taping.
screen for everybody else.
Oh, shut up.
Is it taping us too?
Son of a bitch.
It's not taping. I thought it was just taping.
I mean, if you want to, the camera only sees from like here up.
Really?
Yeah.
So I can't see me.
No, they can't see you. They can hear you, but they
Oh.
can't see you. Alright. Next part that we're going to go over, the discussion portion where y'all are welcome to speak up. I looked up a study. This is the newest results that they actually had. Was from 2014. They hadn't published the 2015 on this site yet. It's from the CDC, the number of injuries that we have in EMS. It's just something to kind of keep in mind. I wanted to point out the age groups of the injuries that we have. 39% of them are 25 to 34, which most of the people in the office fall in that category. That's where most of us are at. And then the other 28%, which is the big chunk, are the 35 and up.
Roger, how old are you?
54.
Ah, he's aged out.
He's old enough to walk our butts.
Basically.
Okay. So that's just something to keep in mind, is we're having them in the middle age group. We'll scroll down here.
Now with that, do they track like male, female, and body
They do.
size?
Look at that, male and female, right up top. 69% of the injuries were male, 31% female. They don't track body size.
Oh.
They do, however, track what caused the injury. And that's the next thing we're going to look at. Sprains and strains made up 34% of those injuries. Contusions and abrasions, 14%. And then puncture and laceration, those were 8% of the unluckiest people. Ow. The body parts affected, if you notice, when we're looking up here, a lot of it's the upper trunk, neck, and shoulders, and then the lower trunk. We have a lot of percentage there, which is our back injuries. We hurt a lot of our backs because we don't use proper lifting techniques. Some of us go and try to overexert ourselves, which is 35% of the causes in these injuries is overexertion and bodily reaction. So it's just something to keep in mind. That's the point of this discussion, is to look at these kinds of things and say, well, what can I do to prevent this? And then some of the other things to point out, the last thing I wanted to show you is 58% of these injuries were caused from plants, animals, minerals, and patients. I don't know how plants and minerals hurt somebody, but they're unlucky. So 58% of the time we're hurting ourselves trying to move people, animals, objects,
Furniture.
furniture.
I guess
yeah.
you're tripping over animals.
I can
Be
see
a
that.
cat, but plants, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sneak up on you.
But still, I mean, we hurt ourselves trying to move patients and by overexerting ourselves. So it's something to keep in mind so that way we can try to prevent those injuries. And then 99% of the injuries down at the bottom were treated and released, and 1% of them are just unlucky and they now have a permanent disability and injury. And it's unfortunate. And that was our discussion on that. On our body lifting and technique, I wanted to point out the incorrect position of the spines. We don't bend. We don't bend at the waist, we bend at the knees. You want to make sure that you maintain the proper technique and the proper alignment of your spine. This guy's spine is all kinds of jacked up. It's all curved up like that, so when he goes to lift, all his pressure is right on here, and he's lifting with his back, so he's more likely to cause an injury. And that's the point of it. The correct lifting technique, if you'll notice, he squats down when he lifts. That way his spine maintains that proper alignment. And that's the important thing. It's maintaining that natural curvature of the spine and lifting with your lower body, not with your upper body. Because by trying to lift with your back is where you're going to get those injuries. All right. Next. Everybody stand up. I've attached a whole bunch of stretches and things like that if you want to do them at home, if you want to do them here. Just some things to kind of stretch out your back, some things like that to help prevention. We're just going to do one or two of them just to kind of demonstrate, to get us up and moving, keep the blood circulating, keep y'all awake. Andy, get up.
You can't make me.
I can change the camera that way.
Go here. I'll show him some.
Alright. I'm going to pick this one to do. stretch the sides of our core because when you're lifting, you should tighten your core. So you put your arms up top and you look to the side and you stretch. And then you hold it for 15 to 30 seconds.
Mildly.
Then you switch. Like I said, the best way that we can prevent injuries, one of them is just stretching, maintaining good eating habits, working out, doing what we can. The whole thing is shaking because the train's going by. That's awesome. I know, that's what I said. So. Alright, I need 2 victims for the last section of this
Go
class.
Arthur, sorry.
There you go.
And in case you want these resources, they're all online on a Google Share Drive. You'll be getting the information sent to you in an email. So you'll have access to the PowerPoints and the notes, the discussion, some links to some stretches if you want to do them to help keep your back and everything in good shape. And then we're going to do something fun now. Who wants to be my victims?
Finally got it done.
I'll be a victim.
Alright, Scott, come here.
Oh, I gotta come up there where the camera is?
Yeah, that's okay. Art, come here.
It's like 30 pounds.
Come up here, please. My victims. Were you paying attention when I said triage?
Oh yeah, you come on, go first.
Your scenario is an MVC versus a school bus on Interstate 81 South, mile marker 128, which is between Roanoke, Salem, and Blacksburg, at 17:45, so in middle of rush hour traffic, with an unknown number of patients, and you guys get to be the first ALF providers on scene. So we're going to do triage. You have these units en route. You have 2 air ones. We're going to pretend that Montgomery has a helicopter, even though they really don't. And it'd be scary if they did. Anyways, we have them in Lifeguard 11. They can both be there in 5 to 10 minutes. You have an EMS in Radford, Blacksburg, Roanoke that are all coming route. And their ETA times are anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the truck. You have 2 BLS units coming, because that was all they had. And then the hospitals that you can take these patients to are listed above. Some of them I gave a little more credit. I think Lewis Gale, we're going to give them a level 2. We're going to promote them for the purpose of this scenario. And we're going to say that you can fly and get to UVA in 2 hours from Blacksburg. Like, if you're going by ground, lights and sirens. Which is not totally unreasonable. It's pretty unreasonable, but pretty close. Here's your patients. Split them up. You have 5 minutes. Please read them out loud and mark them with the triage. Yeah. Are you ready?
You want us to do them together?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Read them out loud.
So we got a young school-age boy is found lying on the roadway 10 feet from the bus. He's breathing 10 times a minute with a good distal pulse and groans to painful stimuli. So can he get up and walk?
He groans to painful stimuli. He's not walking around.
So
He's laying
he's
on the
not
ground.
walking. So,
I would say red media.
well, let's see. All right. So this is the MVC.
And there's your jump start if you need it, but do note you're being timed because it should take 30 seconds a patient.
He's got a good distal pulse. He's breathing 10 times a minute.
And it is open to interpretation, so.
So he's not alert to. So yeah, we'll go with red. You want us to write it on this?
Yeah. I wrote those, so it's all good.
All right. An adult. Kneels at the side of the road, shaking his head. He says he's too dizzy to walk. Respirations are at 20 and the cat refill is 2 seconds. He obeys commands.
Okay.
So he's not ambulatory, so he's not a green. But his respirations are good. His cap refill is good, so I'm going to assume he's perfusing. He obeys commands, so I'd say yellow. A school-age girl crawls out of the wreckage. She's able to stand and walk towards you crying. She has a jacket and shirt torn, no obvious bleeding. So I'm going to go with green.
Yep.
A toddler lies with his lower body trapped under a seat inside the bus. He's apneic, removes Remains apneic with jaw thrust and no pulse. So he's going to be black. A toddler lies among the wreck. Respirations are 15. Palpable distal pulses. Withdrawals from pain.
I think you missed one too, but that's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
welcome back.
That's okay. They're numbered just to keep them together.
Lies among the wreckage. Respirations are 50. Palpable pulses. Withdrawals from pain. So he's not going to be talking. So. Is it yellow or green?
Go yellow.
Alright. So this is adult female in a car trapped by lower legs under car in dash. Respirations are 24. Count refills delayed at 4, and she moans to verbal. So I guess she'd be urgent, but she's trapped. So a woman is carrying a crying infant. She is able to walk. Respirations are 20. Cap refill is 2, and obeys commands.
So she's green.
So she's green.
We're triaging. Keith, if you'd like to join.
An infant carried by a previous victim. He's screaming, but woman quiets him. Respirations are 34. Good distal pulses. Focuses on you, but reaches for mom. No noted. So we'll go green. You agree?
Yep.
A young school-age boy props himself up on the road. Respirations are 28. Good distal pulses. Answers questions and commands. Has deformity to both lower legs. So he would be... The only reason he can't walk is because of the deformity. Yellow. Toddler found outside the bus, lying on the ground in a heap. He's apneic, remains apneic after the jaw thrust. Faint distal pulse palpable. So he has a pulse, but he's not breathing. So I guess with the toddler, we give him the 5 respirations.
Yeah, see if that helps.
If we give him the respirations, does he start breathing on his own? I guess he just remains apneic.
He remains active.
Alright, so then he's going to be black after that. School-age girl lies among the wreckage. Respirations of 40, no distal pulse, and withdrawals from pain. So she's going to be a red.
Your first unit's 2 minutes out. Like I said, we had 5 minutes to triage. Your first unit will be here in 2 minutes.
So she's shocky because she's got an absent distal pulse. Assuming she's got carotid. Would you say red or
Say,
Let's jumpstart. I can scroll back up if you need it.
what's the one where her respirations are over 30?
Red.
Yeah, I'd say
so
red.
we'll go with red. A screaming infant is found among the bushes at the side of the road. Respirations are at 38. Has good distal pulses. Focuses and reaches for you. Has partial amputation of the foot without active bleeding. So
I'll go red with him.
I'll say just because of the amputation.
Okay.
An adult male is lying on the bus. He's apneic, remains apneic despite the jaw thrust. So he's in black. A youngster is up walking around but is limping, alert and crying for mom. Did you go green? An adult male lies close to the bus. Respirations of 36. Absent distal pulse. Sluggishly looks but cannot obey commands. So he's shocky. You go red.
I'd go red.
A young teen girl lies among the wreck, crying for someone to help her up or get her wheelchair. Respirations are 22. Palpable distal pulse. Alert with minor cuts. I'd say she's green because she can't walk normally.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say.
So yeah, I mean she's good other than... An adult male lies on the ground with respirations of 20. Good distal pulses, obeys commands, but cries he cannot move his legs. So he's not ambulatory, he can't be a green. But everything else is good, so would you go yellow?
Alright, your bird's landing. Finish your last one.
Thank God.
Yeah.
An adult female is sitting outside the bus with respirations at 28, good distal pulses. She's groggy, confused, and slowly follows commands but won't get up and walk. So she's not green. She's got good pulses, good respiratory. She's altered. So would you say yellow or green? Alright.
All right. So looking at your stack, your bird from Montgomery's here. Which patient they taken?
Alright, so of our reds,
And why are you picking red? Just because somebody may not know.
because these are the most serious.
Okay. Blacks we don't transport, right?
Right,
Because
'cause
they're
they're
assumed dead.
Dead or
Green or
assumed
walking
dead.
wounded, they're stable, can wait. So just saying that for the people at home.
Alright, so
I would do the infant. That's just me.
yeah.
Which infant? What number?
12.
He's got a partial amputation of the foot with no active bleeding.
So you're going to send the infant with Montgomery. All right, where are they going? Looking at your hospitals.
Well, RMH and UVA has a PICU.
You can cross it out for me if you want. So Montgomery's gone, and where are they going? Because it's something to keep in mind. You're in charge of this scene for now. So who are you sending where?
Well, what do you think?
Go probably RMH.
And we can hold some one to RMH.
No, you can send more than one. I'm just giving you those facilities so that way you know what's in the area.
Alright, so let's send the one infant there because they've got a PICU.
All right, so Lewis Gale Montgomery, you wouldn't mind cross it off, please?
Where? Oh, over here?
Yeah, they're gone.
Alright, so
All
they're
right.
flying them.
You have 3 more units roll up. You got an ALS lifeguard, you got an ALS EMS, and you got a firefighter unit that's BLS, and they say, well, we can't really take anybody in the truck. We don't do that.
So this one's trapped.
Yeah.
You do have the BLS firefighters, though. They're here.
Which one you want to get rid of?
Well, I get them to start working on getting this
Yeah.
woman detangled. Give them something to do.
All right. So they're
I would
working on
think-
her. Which one you want to send out, then?
I would think this would be the next one, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Which one?
Number 1.
Our,
Number 1. So number 1 would be the young male patient that was 10 feet away with a good pulses, painful stimuli, and respirations of 10. So we're going to send him out with the bird. We sending him out by ground. And where's he going?
Ground.
I believe I'd take him by the helicopter.
Okay.
So that'll take out for 11.
And like I said, these are up for debate, so there's no necessarily right or wrong answer. It's just what do you think you would do in this scenario? So that bird's gone. Where are they going?
I'd probably take him, what would you say, UVA?
Yeah, because they're going to have a PICU too.
Okay.
So they're gone. Then we've got
You've got 1 ALS unit there already, and you've got Radford's 5 minutes away. We're kind of speeding up the timeline a little bit, so we're not actually.
Are we no longer trapped with this one?
Which one is trapped?
Number 5, the adult female that's trapped, lower legs under car.
And they're still working on her. They're new.
Alright,
It's only been like 10 months.
Her respirations are 40, so I would say she would be next.
Yeah, and this one looks, but this one only withdrawals.
Yeah.
So we'll send number 11 with the ALS unit. Are they from Christiansburg?
And number 11 is the pediatric with a respiratory rate of 40, no distal pulses, and withdrawals from pain.
Yeah.
So EMS at Christiansburg ALS.
We'll send them.
Where
Can
are
we
they going?
send 2 on one truck?
No, we cannot. But you have more people coming. We're just getting the initial out, and then we'll discuss. So where do you want to send them?
So
You can send them both to one place, so that's fine.
RMH is quicker. So,
and they've got a piece, so that's good.
Good consideration.
Alright.
Alright.
So
Radford rolled up, so you have another ALS unit, and the firefighters got her out, and they're saying, well, what do you just want us to do now?
alright, so let's take her to actually, can we send that other P to UVA? Just so we don't bombard our
Okay, that's fine. So both the birds are going to UVA.
Yeah, so we'll
Okay,
send
both the birds are going to UVA, that's fine.
and RMH is closer, so we'll send her back ground.
We'll send the trap lady to ground
to
to RMH. So RMH says, send us no more, we're full on our trauma bays right now.
That's
They only have 2 rooms there.
I'm
They
gonna
say
call
they're
Daryl
full.
and ask him to tell. Alright, so now we got this adult male. Alright, we can send him to Montgomery, and then they can ship him out later.
I mean, you've got a level 2 Lewis scale there too, so we're giving them a little bit more credit in this scenario.
Well,
You can send
definitely, yeah, let's send them to the scale.
But then again, it's further, so
It
higher
is, but
level of
they're
care,
level
but
2.
further.
So that gets all of our reds.
So all your reds are out. You've got 2 ambulances coming and a firefighter unit coming that you know of. Is that going to be enough to maintain this scene?
Nope.
What all do you need?
So we're gonna need more transport.
You need more transport. What about PD? Did they ever show up? Did we call them?
We called everybody
We called everybody.
Ghostbuster.
So we got PD, we got the fire department, they're taking care of the trap guys. The bus is blocking traffic so your scene is safe and all that good stuff. So we need more units. How many more do you need? How many of these are non-transports? How many of these are transports? How many of these can ride in a command vehicle if we gotta get them somewhere?
Well, any of the greens
The
could
greens,
go in,
yeah.
any of the greens could go in command vehicles.
Which numbers did we give green?
We gave 3, 8, 7, 14, and 16.
Okay, good. Those were all correct, being green, by the way. You got all those right. And you did get 100% of them right, by the way. Congratulations. Some of them were one or the other, so it was a trick question. So you've got your yellows. You have 3 trucks. Yeah, you have 3 trucks there. How many more do you need? In an MCI, what kind of resources are we going to need? Where are we going to send these people? And those are different things to keep in mind, and that's the point of this scenario. Y'all did a great job of looking at your reds and looking at your resources in your hospital and saying, you're going here, and you did that entire thing from triage to transport in, we'll say, 25, 30 minutes, which gives you enough time for the other units to get there. It gives you enough time to have dispatch call more help, be it 911 help, be it transport trucks. You've got more help coming now. So y'all did really great. Thank you. Did you have any questions about that?
No.
No? You
What
felt
do you think?
I mean, yeah, I think you always second guess, like.
By nature,
Yeah.
I mean, just by nature, you want to take care of the youngest and most helpless first.
Right.
So you're drawn more to the kids.
And that's something to keep in mind with these. There's not really right or wrong answers unless you put a green one as black kind of thing. That's obviously wrong, but a lot of it's up for interpretation. Y'all did really great, and you did think, well, which patients need to go out first? You did send the peds out first. I probably would have done the same thing because pediatrics, I think, should come first, but they were all
Well, and
red,
then I'm thinking
so.
too, they're going to compensate and crash quick, and
They are. But you also took into consideration who's got to pick you, who can handle the traumatic infants and kids, which was really good. It's something that, Montgomery's 5 minutes away by air. But can they take a pediatric trauma patient? Where are they going to send them? So that was a good consideration as well. Where are they going to end up? UVA was in there too, because if you're going by bird, it's not as bad, and the bird's going to take a longer turnaround time anyways. So sending them far out is going to be better than sending a truck 2 hours by driving. So I have no idea how long it would take to fly there. I can imagine it'd probably be like less than 30 minutes maybe.
Could you use like Duke 2 and Wake since...
Anywhere that the helicopter can go. I don't know what their range would be. If you're southbound on the interstate, I don't know if you're close enough to Duke or Wake though, because those are in Carolina. Going that far.
Well, but if
I
you
don't know if they
transport
can
them
fly
to
that way.
Montgomery, which is only 10 minutes away, they can fly farther if it's hospital.
True, because
'Cause
they've got
we
the
did
helipad there. They can refuel there.
We did an Alpha Tuesday from NRV to Wake Forest in just under 2 hours. So the helicopter would probably cut that in half?
Yeah, at least.
Maybe more than half.
Yeah. And that comes down to the flight physiology stuff of how far can they go. That goes to how much fuel do they have, how much does the patient weigh, and that's a really complicated thing in itself, and that's up to the pilots. So in theory, I don't see why they couldn't. Yeah. In theory, I don't see why they couldn't. In this scenario, they just weren't listed as options, but that's a good point. Yeah, they could have been options. We could have sent the kids there. I like that we split them up though, so that way it was 2 and 2 instead of all 4 going to RMH because it's the closest. Because really, they have 2 trauma bays. Can they handle 4 pediatric trauma alerts at one time?
Sure.
I mean, in theory, let's dump the entire ER resources right there.
Right.
So, good job, guys. Did anybody have any questions about tonight's lecture or discussion or anything?
Are you going to have these PowerPoints up too?
Mm-hmm. Everything is already up on the share drive except the video. The video will be made available sometime tomorrow. You'll all be getting an email with it, so that way you can watch and review later. You'll have the PowerPoints. I included the Jumpstart PowerPoint, which has an explanation of why each of these is its own color, and it's got 2 different scenarios. Note for people at home, we use scenario number 2 for in class, because number 1 was really long. I think it had more patience, and I had to write these by hand. So, it includes that, so you can do another one in practice and get used to triaging, and it's something in ops that we should just do very, very quickly and get it done. I think we've covered a lot of topics tonight, though, and a lot of this is stuff that was in the critical care practice test, and a lot of it is common sense stuff that we can take to our everyday jobs, so that's the important part. Any questions? This is the shared drive, by the way, that'll pop up. You'll have an option to look at the triage tag, some stretches, the discussion points we went over, including all the links and the sources. I don't know why it uploads my PowerPoints twice. I don't know why. I give up. And then it does Jumpstart, which is the basic pediatric scenario that we went through. I did change some of these to adults because this entire scenario was pediatrics, and I thought, who drove the bus? They're all pediatrics. Who's
Somebody's
driving the bus?
drinking that Kool-Aid.
Who drove the bus? Who drove the car? That was my thing. So I was like, some of these are going to have to be adults. But that is our lecture point for the night. It'll all be up. And we'll click stop recording.